Hi, my name is Jacob Palandran, and welcome to my President's Analysis of the Temple of Aphia. It is located on Aegina Island in Greece. In this presentation, I will be exploring not only what the temple looks like, but why it looks the way it does. We'll examine how its geometry, proportions, spatial organization, rhythm, and construction system all work together to create a unified architectural language. The Temple of Aphia is important because it sits at a moment of transition between the Archaic and Classical periods. That means it still contains some older stylistic traits, but it also introduces new ideas that would influence later masterpieces, like the Corinthian. Understanding this, it helps us how we recognize how Greek architecture evolved through experimentation, refinement, and increasing attention to visual harmony. The Temple of Aphia represents a major turning point in Greek architectural evolution. It takes a traditional Doric temple form and begins to refine it, making the design lighter, more proportional, and more visually sophisticated. In this analysis, I will explain how the temple reflects early classical refinement in form and proportion, and why these changes matter. Many small adjustments, such as slimmer columns, more balanced spacing, and improved sculptural techniques, add up to a clear architectural language. This analysis will break down the structure into key categories such as geometry, rhythm, and construction, so we can see how each component contributes to the overall effect. By the end, you'll see how the Greeks used the design's tools not only for beauty, but to reinforce religious meanings and ritual experience. In the Temple of Aphia, it was constructed around 500 to 490 BCE on the island of Aegina. It replaced earlier temples on the same site, showing that this was an important sacred location for centuries. The sanctuary is dedicated to the goddess Aphia, a local deity associated with nature, fertility, and protection. This temple is especially important because it was built just before the Persian Wars, during a moment when Greek city states were developing their own artistic and architectural identities. The Temple of Aphia shows Aegena's cultural power at the time and represents one of the best surviving examples of early classical architectural refinement. The Temple of Aphia is located on a high hill overlooking the surrounding gulf. This elevated position was not chosen by accident. Greek temples were often placed in locations where they could dominate landscape or be visible from the sea. In this case, the temple forms part of a visual triangle with the Corinthian in the Athens and the Temple of Poseidon at Sunion. Ancient travelers sailing the Gulf would see these major temples as markers guiding them across the waters. The temple's placement also symbolizes protective qualities of the goddess Aphia. Being positioned high above the land creates a sense of watchfulness and reinforces her association with guardianship. Built around 500 BCE, the temple's geography emphasizes both protection and visibility, themes that were deeply important in ancient Greek religious architecture. The overall shape of the temple follows a standard Doric peripetal layout, meaning there is a rectangular cilia surrounded by a ring of columns. From a volumetric perspective, the building is composed of a very clear geometric form. The cilia is essentially a rectangular box. The columns rise as vertical cylinders, creating a perimeter screen, and the roof terminates in triangular pediments on each end. What makes this temple stand out is that the transition from the heavier archaic style to a lighter classical one. The columns are slightly slimmer and spaced further apart, allowing for more openness and better visibility into side aisles. This shift in massing reduces the sense of heaviness and make the temple appear more balanced and graceful. Even though the building uses simple geometry, the arrangement of these volumes creates depth, light, shadow, and movement that define architectural experience. The proportions of the Temple of Aphia are based on a modular system. Using the diameter of the column as the primary unit of measurement, this modular approach creates consistency through the design. The temple has a 6 by 12 column arrangement. This 1:2 ratio is a hallmark of well-planned Doric temples, and the repetition of these proportions reinforces harmony between the building's length and width. The columns themselves show signs of classical refinement. Each column height is about 5.3 times its diameter. Earlier archaic temples and much thicker and shorter columns, creating a heavier appearance. Aphia's taller proportions give the temple elegance and more upward visual direction. Additionally, many historians note that the temple's footprint contains golden section relationships, meaning some lengths relate proportionally to others in a way the Greeks believed were naturally pleasing. Even if not exact, the intentional use of balanced proportion shows that harmony was a priority in the temple's design. And the plan of the temple can be broken into several clear spatial zones, each serving a specific purpose in reinforcing the hierarchy of sacred space. The outermost zone is the peristyle, the surrounding walkway defined by the columns. This area was not only for circulation, but also for ritual movement around the temple. The next zone is a colonnade itself, forming a structural and symbolic boundary between the outside world and the sacred interior. Inside the celia, we find the naos, which housed the cult statue of the goddess Aphia. This space was the spiritual center of the temple, accessible only to certain people. The pronouns, the front, and the opistomos at the rear acts as a threshold. These transitional spaces prepare the visitor before entering the sacred chamber or served as a storage and offering areas. Overall, the zoning of the plan creates a sequence from public to sacred, guiding worshippers both physically and spiritually. Another thing is the facade is organized into a series of horizontal zones, and understanding these layers helps us see how Greek structure visualize order. The stylobate or step base forms the lowest zone. It elevates the temple and provides a stable platform. Above that is a vertical forest of the columns, creating the second zone. This zone gives them the temple rhythm and strong visual identity. Next comes the entablature, which includes the architrave, frieze, and cornice. This layer unifies the top of the columns and distributes weight across the facade. The triglyph metope pattern also adds visual interest and meaning. The pediment forms the uppermost zone. Its triangular shape acts like an architectural frame. For sculptural narrative in this temple, the pediments depict scenes related to the goddess and heroic myth. These horizontal zones work together to create clarity, order, and a sense of progression from base to peak. Now, rhythm is one of the most essential qualities of Greek temples architecture. And in the Temple of Aphia, rhythm appears in multiple layers. The first rhythmic element is arrangement of columns. It is 6 by 12 configuration, which is establishing a repeating pattern around the entire structure. The spacing between each column creates a visual beat, almost like architectural music. On the facade, this rhythm continues through the triglyphs and metopes of the Doric frieze. The alternating pattern reinforces the temple's sense of order. Even the shadows created by the fluted column shows rhythmic repetition through the day as the sun moves across the sky. These rhythmic patterns give the temple a sense of both stability and movement, guiding the viewer's eyes along these structures and creating a dynamic visual appearance that responds to light, perspective, and viewpoint. Now, the Temple of Aphia uses the classical Greek post and lintel construction system, which relies on vertical supporters, the columns, and the horizontal beams. The foundation begins with limestone blocks carefully leveled to create a stable base. The stylobate and steps were designed with slight curvature to correct optical illusions, showing the sophistication of Greek craftsmanship. The columns were built from stacked drums held together by wooden pegs or stone dowels. After stacking, the columns were fluted or carved with vertical grooves. To ancient height and reduce visual weight, above the columns rests the entablature, which include the architrave and the triglyph metopries. Each block fits precisely with the next, using clamps or dowels. The roof structure included wooden beams and rafters covered with terracotta tiles through the roof which no longer survives reconstruction help. This understands this helps us understand how these temples managed the long span with limited materials. The precise carving, tight tolerances, and careful assemblies demonstrate the Greek builders were not just artisans but highly skilled engineers. The Temple of Aphia is historically significant because it marks a moment of transition between the archaic and classical periods. Artistically, its pediment sculptures show a move toward naturalism. Figures appear more dynamic and anatomically accurate. Architecturally, the temple improves on the proportion of the earlier Doric temples, setting standards that would influence later buildings, including the Corinthian. The temple also plays an important role in the religious landscape of the Saronic Gulf. Together with temples at Athens and the Sunin, it forms a triangular network of sacred sites that were visible to sailors and travelers. Overall, the Temple of Aphia stands as a prototype for future classical architecture, demonstrating the shift towards balance, clarity, and refined aesthetic. In summary, the Temple of Aphia embodies the evolution of Greek architectural thought. It brings together ideas, geometry, proportion, rhythm, and construction to create a unified harmonious temple form. By studying this temple, we get a glimpse into experimentation and refinement that shaped classical architecture. It also shows us how structure and meaning were closely linked into ancient Greek design. Every choice served both engineering and symbolic purposes. The Temple of Aphia may not be as famous as Corinthian, but it played an important role in developing the visual language of Greek architecture. Its innovation set the stage for the architectural achievements that followed. These are the main references used for this president analysis, including in academic studies and architectural reports of the Temple of Aphia. These additional diagrams, images, and architectural drawings are used in the final video. Will be used in this final video and will be accredited. Um, this information comes from reusable, reputable sources specializing in Greek architecture and classical archaeology. Thank you for listening to my presentation.